This week, we continue with our live website redesign series, where we redesign a client website here live on the show while you watch. Stick around and watch us work. Welcome to episode numero 20, or episode number 20. I am your host, Jose Caballero. I am the Chief Creative Officer of digital agency The Group, and every week we answer your web design questions in business, creative, tech, and marketing here on the show. And joining me again, as always now actually, is quite a frequent fixture is Ari Guimon, who is a creative director, a freelance creative director, and helps is our expert guest and helps us answer your questions. How are you doing, Ari?
Awesome. Thanks for having me again.
Welcome to episode number 20.
Number 20.
I don't know if we should celebrate this as an anniversary, but it's a pretty good episode, or pretty good run.
Yeah.
I want you guys to join us live if you're watching on ustream.tv this weekend. You can also join us live on youtube.com/thisweekend, or you can tweet us during the show at my Twitter, which is at Jose Caballero. You can also use the hashtag TWI web design. So TWI web design, and sometimes it comes up here and sometimes it doesn't. But here you go. On Facebook, you can reach us at facebook.com/TWI web design, facebook.com/TWI web design. And Facebook is an important one. If you like the show, go to Facebook, check it out, and like us. And also, please subscribe on iTunes. If you go to iTunes and you look for This Week in Web Design and leave a review, tell us what you think of the show. If you like it, please review it. Give it 5 stars. It really helps us a lot to hear what your feedback is. Finally, again, if you go to Facebook, facebook.com/TWI web design, like us on Facebook. Ari, how many likes do we have so far?
I don't know. I'm going to check, actually.
I think we have about 100 and some. So
That's
we
awesome.
know that you're out there and you know that you like watching the show. So do us a favor to do that. Today we have a slightly longer format show. Usually we're on at 3 o'clock. Today we're on at 4. So catch us again next week at 4 for a longer show where you're going to watch us work. And I'm going to get really quickly into what we're doing today. So last week we met with the client. We listened to what they wanted us to do.
Right.
We're one of several vendors that are pitching this project. And what did you think of the meeting? How did you think it went?
I think it went really well. I mean, it was great to get their insight, you know, especially like what they're expecting, what they expect from us as a partner. I think that was really valuable to listen to them.
And so if you watch episode 19, you can see that this week in.com team, Matt and Ryan, talking a little bit about their needs, and we talked a little bit about the 3 key things that you needed during that first meet and greet meeting where you met the client. Really listening, really doing your research and your homework before you go into the meeting, and asking that magic question. You know, what are you looking for in a partner?
Right.
You know, and I've had a couple of people be shocked when I asked that question during the meeting. They're like, "Whoa, no one has ever asked us that." People usually come in and they present their work and
they talk about themselves.
They talk about themselves.
Totally.
So notice something. If you guys watched the show, episode 19, we didn't show our work. We're going to show that in our proposal next week. Today, we're going to work on the proposal here on the show. So this is a little bit different. We haven't done this before, where you guys are watching us work. So bear with us today as we
we're getting into it.
Yeah, we're going to get into it, and you're going to see me go through my process. Notice that today I'm wearing a suit, which is a little different than my usual, because today I'm putting on that mindset.
The business hat.
I'm the business hat today.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, actually, that's a really good technique. If you want to shift from design, from creative to business, just dress the part like a Hollywood movie, and you begin shifting in the mindset. Yeah. So let's get started.
Cool.
You know, you asked me today earlier when we were preparing about what is it why do we need to really make proposals as a freelancer?
Right.
So in our audience, we have freelancers, we have agencies, we have from people from different disciplines, from web design, etc. Tell me your experience a little bit in this.
I mean, I think for me, like the main question to ask would be, like, what's the point in doing a proposal, right? And do you need to do it if you're working on a really small project? I guess that would be my experience, right? Like I basically just deal with clients like on a one-to-one. They're small projects, small websites. So in some cases, I'm asked for a proposal. In some cases, I'm not. You know, I'm curious to, just get your take on what you think the purpose is behind putting a proposal together.
That's a very good question, and you know, I'm looking at it from the point of view of a boutique digital agency. But when we started the group in 2001, Mary Gribben, my founding partner, and I, we took actually the templates for proposals and for other things from our previous employer, from Razorfish.
And it's funny because now I'm using your template to like put proposals together for the people I'm working
And I
with.
gave it to you because people are going to take the templates no matter what.
Right.
You know, I believe that it might as well be explicit about it and
Totally.
just share it with everybody and give it to them.
Totally.
And you guys, if you want the templates that you're going to see today, you can tweet me at Jose Caballero, and we have a wiki, a group school wiki, where you'll be able to download the templates if you need them or if you want them. So to answer your question, going back to the specific question, do we really need to do proposals? My experience has been that we really feel, from the beginning, Mary and I felt that we wanted to behave as an agency, even if we were at the beginning a collective, quote unquote, of creative people coming together. And when we went into a pitch, you know, said, look, we're the group, we're a collective of the top consultants in this space, you know, design, technology, information architecture, strategy, et cetera, and that's how we walked in.
Right.
We always behaved as an agency,
right.
even when we weren't necessarily a traditional agency. That's happening more and more today, where you have fragmented teams collaborating and doing projects. So very specifically, I think the 3 keys or the 3 reasons for it. One, you have to establish trust. You know, some of the people don't know you from Jesus.
Right.
So if we had a slide, which I don't have, but if we had a slide, the first slide, you know, to establish trust, that's really one of the key things. Share how you do it. You know, what's going to happen during the process. Whether the client is very experienced or not, let's say the client is very experienced, they want to compare and contrast how they've done it in the past and if you're going to do the right steps, if you're going to take the right approach.
Right.
If they're not, they want to know what's going to happen in the process. They might not know. And finally, you know, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to deliver, and who's going to do it, and how much it's going to cost? Those are kind of and of course, the schedule, how long it's going to take.
Right.
Expectation setting, this is the beginning of the narrative in the story. This is not the contract. This is not the statement of work. We're going to cover that also after our pitch. If we get the project, then we'll do a statement of work or a contract. And in contrast to, this is to our viewers who might come from advertising or who might come from broadcast design or from traditional print design, where you might do a PO from an agency and it's a one sheet of what you are going to do. And it's a purchase order, basically, of what you're buying. A website isn't like a computer or a physical object that you're buying. A website is a process and people and a team. So the best way is really to just go into the proposal and show it. Now, again, I've modified and kind of evolved how we present or how we pitch. I don't like, I like things to be visual.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that's something I really like about your template, is that it's not just it's not really text heavy. It has a lot of great graphs, which is something that, as a visual person, I'm really drawn to that.
And we call it savvy. We call it simple, actionable, visual. And if we look at my screen, if we transfer over to my computer, and I have the beginning of the thisweekend.com template, and let's stay here for a bit and let's just walk through it. This is a template based on a previous proposal that I began putting together. We have standard kind of story, and you asked me this question. What are the different things, chapters?
Story, yeah.
So I'm going to modify this as we speak here and kind of work with me as we go through the process. So I've already customized some of the components, but I haven't done everything. So first of all, what did you think was the highlight of last week's meeting? What did we take away that we can really kind of focus on in our proposal, like a narrative thread?
I mean, I think their goals as a network and as a company, I think, is something to really focus on and really highlight.
So I'm going to change the executive summary kind of to your goals, which is really, and again, you can change things. They don't have to be fluid.
Right.
At this point, I feel comfortable. We can remove this positive living practice. We use this when we're doing projects in the green space or where we're doing projects in in the table of contents, or TOC is just the beginning. And I use a table of contents as a way to kind of structure the
just like outline it before you actually. Yeah, I think that's really good. And that's a really good point. Like, just strip out the things that you feel you don't need. Like, some things might not be relevant for a specific client. So, for example, one of the proposal I gave you, which is based on your template, I took a lot of things out of there. I just focused mainly on the visual things, on some of the kind of high-level estimation as far as the cost would be, And I put that proposal together because the client was pretty cost sensitive. So I think just really showing him in graphs like how much it was going to take, how much it was going to cost, was something really.
Well,
really
also
valuable.
it was a client that hadn't necessarily done it often enough.
Right.
So they were new to the whole space, and I have it here, and we can share it with the audience if we go to the screen. Well, let's continue doing the big one, and I think that
Right.
we can actually transfer over and show it. So again, I'm gonna metaphorically roll up my sleeves and kind of go into it. So, and I wish I had my Wacom tablet. That usually helps.
You can borrow mine.
No, you don't have to. Well, sure, it's
use
okay.
it.
I can use the. So the introduction, what their goals are, the company profile. That's our profile, and that
Right.
can either be at the end or in the middle. So let me just start going through these and talking about them. So this introduction letter is a personal letter, and it either comes from myself, and in some cases we have it from myself and Barrett when we're doing a proposal where we both worked on it.
Right.
And here, what I'm saying here, and it's important to read this. Thank you for the opportunity to bid on this important project. In this document, we outline for you the approach, deliverables, timeline, and cost for the design and the build of the. And let me add the project here. This weekend. This one big tip is don't misspell the client's name.
Yeah, that's
This
important.
week in website, I've seen that happen. People like misspell. I've never done it, but it's not a good thing. And then we've made an extra effort to provide you with a visual and easy to read proposal, including a cost visualization. We call it SAVVY, Simple Actionable Visual Information. We hope you enjoy it. And that's a precept from Group School that everything we present is simple, actionable, and visual. Simple, actionable, and visual. And then at the end, I have my signature, and let us know if you have any questions. The next set is actually the goal. It's the executive summary, and we just called it your goals, which is summarizing what it is that they want us to do and how we are approaching that. So this
Right.
letter introduces it. This is your goals. In traditional documents, you have this as the executives, the introduction, and then the executive summary. I don't like using personally, Word. I'm using Keynote. I need it to be big type. So this is how I like doing it. So I don't know. I mean,
It's an issue of preference at that point.
it's an issue of preference.
Totally.
Keynote is awesome. PowerPoint is just not my friend.
Right.
I'm pretty good at PowerPoint. I just don't like using it. So the next thing we have in the proposal is the company profile. And again, this is boilerplate. We've developed this over time. And again, you should develop this for yourself as a freelancer.
Right.
Like, who are you? What do you do? What are the key kind of attributes? And I'll go through ours in that, the structure is simple in that it says what we do. We create, brand identity systems and build websites for marketing and e-commerce as well, create branded videos and content for web. Now, that was very specifically customized to this particular proposal.
Right. And I was going to actually ask that question, like something that I've learned this the hard way, but like showing the right thing to the right client. Like focusing, like choosing the projects that are relevant to that project, right? The projects that you've done in the past, right?
Yeah.
I've done it where I come in and I just show like all this awesomeness, and the client's like, well, this isn't really relevant to what I'm doing.
So you're talking about showing relevant case studies versus showing too many.
Right.
We do that. We remove and we try to kind of to only share what is really relevant to the client, no matter what the inclination is, and you're inclined to show work because you're excited about it or because you're proud of it. We take the approach of controlling ourselves and showing less than more. If they ask for more, show them more. They can also look at the site. On our site, we have a portion, maybe 10% of the amount of work we've done over the last 10 years, which is something that I want to fix and share more with the public. But ultimately, people have seen your work and got referred to you.
Right.
So that's a portfolio approach question. In the keynotes, you'll see at the end what we show, and there's a particular approach we've taken in sharing the work because we're presenting these usually in person. Mm-hmm. It might be a little bit different if you're presenting or sending the document, and in some cases, people feel that our proposals are too many slides, so we have to condense them and send them.
Do you think it's better to be in person?
You always want to present in person if you can. Usually they're going to review it ahead of time anyway, but we, for the most part, either we met in person and then send a proposal, or we present it in person at some point. if it's a big enough client and there's multiple agencies,
right,
there's going to be an in-person presentation.
Interesting.
If you're doing a no-bid situation where it's only you and a client, you won't, it's better to present to them in person because
Right.
there's no reason not to.
Right. Do you structure it differently when you know you're going to be there in person to present?
Yeah, well, this is, yes, and I have we structure the story as it relates to what the client requested
Right.
and what's important to them. So what I heard last week in our meeting, and it's great that we videotaped that it was a show because I was able to watch it,
yeah.
and what I'm going to recommend, and let's just keep on going through this, what I'm going to recommend is that we only do a discovery phase, that we only give them a proposal for discovery phase.
Okay.
So let's kind of customize this. We're at the 15-minute mark. So the partial client list.
The logos are great.
Having the logos in there is really great to show people who you worked with and they feel comfort, whether it's, and again, the logos can be broader, and
Right.
the question is, they could ask, does this person have experience in my client vertical? So this is very general, like you have Ford
Right.
models and Live
Right.
Earth and North, which is to date I think one of my favorite identities that we've done. But then we actually do it by vertical, where we put with the clients that we've worked with by vertical, and at the end of the vertical we have, or at the end of that we just have a collage, and then if we bring my monitor up again, it's kind of it's just a wall of some of the highlights of the projects we worked. It's colorful. I kind of like it, and it's a way to share the breadth of the work. From things that we've done, with kiosks to CD, DVD, ROMs in the early history of the group, to campaigns, to digital TV. I happened to choose stuff that was very colorful.
Gotcha.
For this particular.
Is this like just in general, or are you like showing this for?
No, I mean, these are just little squares in Keynote, but we share. This is just kind of almost like a divider, a decorative divider slide.
Gotcha.
It's not sometimes we show, so we use it, sometimes we don't.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you pick those case studies based on.
On the client, no. These
Gotcha.
are general. These are
Gotcha.
general case studies.
Gotcha.
But we could potentially focus it on those.
Right.
Positive living was something where we articulated what we've done in lifestyle, for Scripps Networks and for Live Earth and for Thomas Keller, and it was where we talk about that we do things in the financial, environmental, and actually education is what this one is meant to be. But this particular project doesn't need it. So I'm going to just remove the positive living section. So the approach and methodology. Now, this one is an interesting one because a lot of clients want to know how we do what we do. So
Right.
we have, the 6 steps, discovery, plan, design, build, launch, assess, and iterate, which recently we modified, and now it's 3 steps with discovery and plan in one, design and build in another one, launch and iterate in the last one. So the new 3 steps are inception, execution, and launch. I'm going to modify this proposal to include those 3 steps.
Gotcha.
And again, this is Keynote, so for those of you who are interested in the technical, this is simply a table in Keynote. So like if I bring up, if you've used Keynote, Keynote is the bomb diggity. Apple is my best friend when it comes to this. And I'm curious to hear how cool are they with their Macs, Dr. Salvo. So Dr. Salvo, you just said that comment is great. Wow, how cool are we with our Macs? I've been a Mac user, I think, my entire.
I've been a Mac user for a while. I used to use PC for a while, and I loved it. And then I switched, and
If you're using PowerPoint, the person who introduced me to Keynote was an MBA from Harvard, a CEO of a tech company, Jay Haynes, who, shout out to Jay Haynes, thank you for all the advice and great input throughout the years. He was a group advisor. He was the one who told me, dude, if you're using PowerPoint, you got to be like crazy. So I would recommend that you switch to Keynote. It's like the difference between having, I don't know.
Cars, like what would you...
It's like PowerPoint. You gotta be like crazy to use PowerPoint, and I'll leave it at that. So what I was going to share with you guys was that this is simply a table, and to answer the question that some people might ask, so what's the big deal about PowerPoint? I'm sorry, about Keynote. versus PowerPoint. So again, I was just showing that this is just a table that I removed some of.
This is super easy to use.
It's super easy to use.
Yeah.
For a designer, it does. You know how what PowerPoint does is that it fights you. Like you want to do a formatting thing, and it moves to the left or it moves to the right. It's almost like it's the difference between riding a mule and riding a fine show horse.
There you go.
Like the horse does what you want it to do. It goes. A mule just stops and you have to kick it.
Right.
So I rather like ride a fine show horse than ride a mule. And I know I'm from the Dominican Republic, so I've ridden mules and I've ridden horses.
We ride horses.
Keynote is like a horse, a fine horse.
PowerPoint
is like a mule. All right, moving on from that. So again,
basically here what you're doing is just like this is how we do what we do is what you're showing in the slide.
You know, and there's a million ways to slice this. If you're a freelancer, what I would do is I would articulate your process. You know, the new structure that we're using is a results of the 10 years, you know, of doing it. How can I simplify it down to 3 steps?
Right.
What's inside the 3 steps? So, and I'll share that with our audience. But one of the things that we also have here is visual. So the discovery phase. What are the activities that you do? You know, showing pictures from the actual process, and you know, with little notations at the end of these of what projects they were for. Then showing the planning phase, you know, what do we do during a planning phase and the type of documents and activities that we do, you know, what do you do during the design phase. You know, if you're an agency, you know, what the client is looking for is trust. And trust comes from experience, and it comes from having an organized process of doing things.
Right.
So by you sharing with your clients how you do what you do, and if you're an experienced web designer, you've done some of these things and a lot of it, by you just simply communicating it, it really makes a huge difference in how you your perception of
perception
value.
Of you.
Yeah,
your
perception. It's like, wow, they are tight.
They're really tight.
I had an agency producer from an advertising agency, and again, ad agencies are not used to doing or getting these type of proposals when they're doing campaigns. They're used to getting creative pitches or, you know, work orders, or, you know, it's not as common to do like a deck like a consultant, right? And he said, "This is the best proposal I've ever seen." That's
awesome.
He was like shocked that it was so detailed, and so and I didn't think it was that detailed. That was a funny thing. So here's again the design process, what you do, moving on to the building and the coding of a site. What does that look like? And trying to find ways to articulate that is kind of hard. So some of these are just showing like people coding.
But in a lot of cases, you're there in person, kind of explaining these things.
Most of the time, yes, you're there, kind of talking about it a little bit, and people like seeing it. You know, in sales, one of the things that I learned over time and that I also read is that if you can show the person as close as possible what it's going to look like. So if you're selling a house, you know, they bake bread, they furnish it, they make it look super like you know, like you're in it, and then they ask you like, what would you want this to look like, you know, and they try to make you feel like you're already there. So if you can make the client already see the process and see how it's going to be, and then I'll actually talk about group school and how that plays a role in the sales process, and even sharing with them the process before you're doing it. So does that make sense? So then assess and iterate here, which is again going through the final kind of steps. Project management approach, this is talking a little bit about some of the kind of precepts. So if we go back to my screen, the final few steps, and I'm going to speed it up and kind of go through the different steps. So the final step is the launch. Launch is one thing, and then assess and iterate is afterwards, which is looking at the analytics, looking at the backlog of things that didn't get done in the first release. And something to talk about is that you want to set the expectation that this is not finite, that you're not just launching the site and you're done and you move on and you go out somewhere else. I have not seen any successful engagement, or I haven't seen the level of success in our engagements that I've seen when we are engaged to do not only the launch but also the assessment.
Absolutely, like you're building a relationship. It's more than just that one project, and then you're exactly.
Yeah. So talking a little bit about our project management approach, and this is kind of our philosophy, talking a little bit about how we believe in, you know, agile values, that we're going to be communicating, that we're going to be using an extranet, and that communication is extremely important. These are some slides illustrating a little bit about what it means to work within an agile type framework, and we work in something that you know, if from a project management standpoint, some people might understand that it's a mix of agile and waterfall. What that means is that it's fixed scope. Fixed fee, but variable scope. So we tell the client that, and if you want to fix the scope, we're going to do what we're recommending for this project, which is, okay, so let's do a discovery phase separately, and then figure out how much it's going to cost.
Gotcha.
So
basically outline what the methodologies are. Do you also do that, like for tech, for example? Like if you're going to use one
Good
technology?
question. Yes, we do. So traditionally, whether we're working with a tech partner or and however we're doing, the development, an integrated proposal will have, things like, and I can open one up and show, things like server architecture, et cetera. The key thing though is that those usually already mean that you've done a discovery phase and that you figured out what the solution is. So
Gotcha.
It's crazy unless you have. So the difference between being a consultant and being, people might have already kind of predefined solutions where this is what you get, or people sell like, well, you're going to get 10 pages and, this is the type of server environment and this is what we're going to build a site in, versus we don't necessarily have a fixed solution. We solve the problem.
You want to listen to them first.
Well, we don't have packages. Like we don't have
Gotcha.
It's really what people are paying for is our time and our knowledge.
So that's what you mean by discovery phase, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
So I'll show that. And so deliverable, scheduling, cost. So here we start outlining a bit of our understanding of the scope, and what we're going to put in here is I'm going to reiterate what we heard, what the key kind of goals were, and I think that Ryan really made a great point, and it's inform, engage, and then kind of.
Right.
You want people to know about it, you want to engage the people, and then you want to have to come back, into
Gotcha.
into the whole process. So I'm going to write little paragraphs around each of those things here.
So here is basically what we're going to do.
This is an understanding of what they need, and again,
Gotcha.
I'm repeating that, and I'm repeating that here, your goals, but then in a scope understanding is here's what we understand you need, and then I visualize it here a little bit, and there's multiple visualizations that we have of this, but I'm just going to share this one a little bit. For this, what I said earlier, what we want to do is we want to only do the discovery phase. So what we could do potentially is something like this, and again,
I just block out that whole section.
Going back to using
Gotcha.
Keynote, block out this section, but show it a bit faded out. So this is the power of visual design. The reason I like doing things visually, here's the opacity, is because I personally myself kind of don't like dense content.
Right.
And that's for me to, if I'm doing it, I need to understand it.
It speaks a lot to your background too.
It speaks to the fact that I'm a designer, yeah.
Right.
And even if it's a tech diagram, we try to make it really simple. So going to the next thing that we show, the resources. So
I love this slide.
This slide is just kind of showing little people with what the resources are. So in this case, now the question is here.
So here you're basically giving the client an idea of how big the team is going to be.
Right. So that's important because ultimately they want to know, hey, you and what army are doing
right.
this.
Right. How many people do we need to pay?
And that gives also a sense of scope, or a sense of scale. Right. So like if you're putting a number in the budget and they don't know who resource cost is really the primary cost of the engagement.
Right.
They're not buying a website, they're buying people.
Right.
That's funny. It sounds like Soylent Green. You're not buying a website, you're buying people. And I started doing it in this kind of visual form because we were also selling in the market, in education and in, non-consulting environments. So it's not necessarily that we were out selling to a big corporation. We were selling to a team of people that weren't necessarily used to how this works. So this simple visualization of the team, and that's not the only thing. I mean, it's not like, well, great, that you have little people there, but what do these people do? We also have then an explanation of what that role is.
Right.
What each of the roles means, and I put a metaphor for it. The creative director drives the creative vision, project and inspires and delights the entire team. He's the conductor or she. Strategist does inspires alignment between the business objectives, and I don't think you can read that. Inspires alignments between the business objectives, the users, and the brand. And give it a metaphoric name, and that's the aligner, like right here on the right. And going down the line on all the different resources and what they do. Again, you said it before, it's developing a sense of trust.
Right.
Like, so people really get visibility. People
Right.
trust what they know. If they don't know.
That's a really good point. And I mean, I think in your case, when you do projects that are large, you definitely have to give a little bit of clarity at the beginning when the client's going to give you a big chunk of money.
You're getting, they're paying a lot of money.
Right.
It's important for their businesses. It is not something trivial. So again, going back to this issue of, Jose, I'm a freelancer. I don't really want to do this, long ass drawn process and deliverables. And I understand that. And I really do understand that from a freelancer standpoint. And I had, fortunately, the experience of, having worked at a large consultancy like Razorfish and, from Jeff Dotches, that's on that. He's the one who taught me a lot about like what the key things are. And if you're at an agency, I asked explicitly early on in my time at Razorfish when I was renegotiating my salary and my role, and I said, look, I want to learn the business stuff, and I very explicitly said that in Asset. And as a creative going into that, what I call the dark side, quote unquote, which ultimately isn't really the dark side, it's just more left brain, and you have to focus to get these. One of the other reasons for chunking out this stuff like this is when I have a document that's very dense, I have a hard time kind of getting in it and doing it. I lose myself in the document. So having it broken up into these little bite-sized morsels and slides helps me personally parse out the story and the information. It's almost like doing broadcast design for a proposal. So let's go through the final parts here of the proposal. We're at the 30-minute mark, and we want to take another 10, 15 minutes going through this, and then begin kind of customizing it. So these slides here, right after the resources, then going into the resource description, then talking about the description and the deliverables. So based on last week, I think that what we want to do is instead of giving a full price for the entire kind of engagement, let's give them a price for the discovery.
Gotcha.
So discovery, usually we charge about 30 to 50K depending on the scale of the discovery.
Okay.
And that's not including, we're not doing any design or identity. Sometimes we do rapid prototyping during the discovery, which means, and you've done it, so you've done it with me, so you understand that, where it's like we're doing what it looks like, but not necessarily doing the final design.
Right.
We're getting them excited about.
We're
what
getting
potential
tactical
prototype.
right then and there, so they can see value.
Get
right
tactical,
away.
a paper prototype right away, so they can see value. And they're like, wow! And then you go in and you take the time to kind of do it.
So basically, on that slide, you're showing what the client is going to get.
Yes. So on this slide specifically, we're talking about the different things, and this is again from a previous proposal. So I need to customize that. So the brand strategy workshop, user definition, product definition. It's funny that in this one, what I did is I put that the person that we were pitching to in this case scenario was also in the engagement.
Oh, that's the client.
That's the client.
That's cool.
So highlighting them in there, and that's another thing, from a sales standpoint. Again, I said at the beginning, if you feel that they're included,
right,
they feel already like part of the team. That's really important.
That's really good.
I think that's maybe a little excessive. So I don't think that's And then here's you have creative direction, identity development, user interface design, and this project didn't include development, so we have to add that to it.
Gotcha.
And I'll share a little bit what this past project that we're using as a template for this.
So I like that. You have like the size of the team that's going to require to get each one of those chunks done on the right-hand side. That's
so actually, that's a really good point. So I have, here's brand strategy is only the creative director, the strategist, and the producer. And, I can zoom in on that.
I think the next slide had like...
So you, the creative director, strategist, and producer. And that might actually include one or two more people in this case scenario. So in this case, it's going to be me, you, Barrett, and a producer.
Right.
So that's 4 people.
Right.
And we might include other people since I'm very involved in the strategy process. So then here in this slide, in the identity development, we have, creative director, strategist, art director, designer, and producer. We have 3 designers. And we're going to do the same thing for the This Weekend website. We're going to have 3 designers actually work on it. And, and something that I want to talk to the audience a little bit that I want to do for this. Someone tweeted me about wanting to participate, and I want to open it up to participation to our audience. When we get to that, I'll give more details on that.
So do you have a slide that kind of breaks down the cost for each one of those?
Yeah, let's talk about the cost. So again, the 3 rules that we talked about was you have to establish trust, so who you are and what you've done. You have to show them how you're going to do it. So that's what we've gone through so far.
Right.
We go back to the beginning here, and what's really cool? Keynote has this view, like light table view. And you can see the entire proposal, like in a broad.
That's nice.
So this is, and there's a little bit of excess here at some point, so that you can see everything that the proposal has in it. Right here, these examples are in the wrong place. So I'm going to delete them. Bam.
How long are
Delete
like your proposals usually?
It's like 80 slides. So that's what my point that I was making, that some people have said, hey, you know what, that's pretty long. So what I want to do for the future, and we have our new education associate who's going to be helping us do that, I want to condense the case studies to one page so that we don't have, well, meaning here's a little bit of text, here's, you know, kind of how we have them on the website versus having these long ass. So let's talk about cost. So you asked me the question about cost. So we already went over how we're going to do it and who's going to do it. Yeah.
Right.
So here I'm reiterating the description of the activities. So there's a difference between deliverables and activities. So in the deliverables, you know, the creative brief is a deliverable, the identity is a deliverable, the user interface designs are deliverables.
Right.
Activities are similar, and you know, in this case scenario, I think it's a little confusing to have this for both, so I'm going to delete it. I think we should keep it just to the description of the deliverables.
The deliverables, yeah, I think that's clear. I mean, something I get asked a lot is what are you going to give me? What am I going to get from clients?
Concretely. And I'll show you a little bit of example. Sometimes we've done it where we put examples of it in it. So I have another proposal that I can share that has that visual, but let me answer your question here in timeline. So in the proposal, there's degrees of detail that we do for the timeline. In this case scenario, you have one here that's dividing things into weeks. So in addition to that, in the statement of work, we show explicitly deliverable dates. So this is not the statement of work yet, and the timeline will change from the proposal to the actual contract. And the reason it'll change is because you're probably not going to start the project at the time that the client wants to start it right away. But they're going to go through, you know, assessing the different proposals. They're going to go through these different things.
So how do you count? Do you just tell them like, look, this is an estimate?
You tell them that this is the approximate, you know.
Gotcha. They're all approximations.
Approximation, but it's based on, and then there's another approach which we've done in the past, which is calculate hours and put that into a proposal or into an estimate and say, look, it's this many hours at this rate.
Right.
So that sometimes works. A rate card, putting in your rates, and people, I think one of the questions people are going to have is, you know, how much do I charge?
Right.
So we, the group specifically, the way we do it is we do a blended rate. So before I get to that, let's get to
I love this slide, by the way.
This slide is just our estimation methodology, so that the client, you know, as much education and transparency as possible. Our price is based on the resource cost multiplied by the number of hours equals the cost. And very specifically, then the next slide is what Jeff Dotches told me, you know, when I started the group. He said, for every dollar we bill, it costs us 50 cents to make, and between 20 to 30 cents in overhead, such as rent, equipment, technology, accounting, etc. You're like, why the hell do you have to tell this to a client? You know, why would you want to tell this to a client? You know, that leaves us about 20 cents in profits, being that the majority of engagements, including this one, are fixed fees. You know, our profitability is only as good as our ability to satisfy and exceed your expectations within estimated budgets.
Transparency.
Look, transparency, and here's the reality. If your client doesn't have your best interest as a company in mind, if they're trying to basically just, you know, kind of grind you on price,
right? You don't want that.
You don't want to work with them.
True.
You know, you're a business, they're a business. It's in their best interest for you to be as healthy as possible. So I try to like really have a dialogue with the CEO or the highest person possible in an engagement to know that, you know, look, ultimately it's in our best interest to be healthy, and the level of quality and resources and how we're approaching this project.
You're not going to service them properly if you're unhappy.
Yeah, and competing on price is definitely not a good thing. It just doesn't, it kills you. So even the visualization, again, going back to savvy there of your profit margins, people want to know. And at this point, up front, here's our profit margin. So now you asked the pricing, and here's a traditional kind of pricing scheme in terms of the different phases and how it happens. What I wanted to do here is I wanted to visualize it and show the cost. So this is about the pricing that we're going to have for this weekend, even though it isn't, I don't think it's as accurate. But meaning that there's some modifications that need to happen. I need to work on it a little bit more. But for example, you know, one option we can take is to fix fee the whole thing and say, look, this is the total amount, and you can see it down here of 198,000, right? And something that I talked with Jason Calcanis, you know, early on, and when I did his show, was that there's a ratio of, you know, large agency to boutique agency to freelance individual in terms of price.
Yeah.
And it's the 550, 150 or 250. So something that a large agency would charge $250,000 for,
Gotcha.
we would probably charge, 50 to
right.
75,000,
And a
freelancer would charge 5 to 15,000, right?
Exactly.
So that's really relevant to, and people are like, what? How can there be such a big variance in pricing? The pricing, really will change as it relates to both the approach and the quality of the resources, but very specifically, the level of accountability existing.
Right.
So if, for us, for example, as a digital agency, as a boutique digital agency, let's say relative to a competitor, and this is looking at recent pitches, let's say, that we've done, you have to be able to prove that they're going with you will ultimately lead to their success or lead to a successful execution of the project. So what they're buying is assurance that the project will be delivered.
That's a really good point.
That will be delivered within budget and hopefully
That's a really good
within
point.
budget.
And then when people within their organization ask them, like, why did you go with these guys? They can validate it. They can say.
Yeah, and for an example, we pitched something that was about 250,000. There was actually G4 TV. Let's just talk about who it was. And we came in a little lower than 200,000. We were really wanted the account, so we wanted the project to do the site. It's a Drupal website, and we got beat by Razorfish. And I talked to some of the people afterwards, and they said, we really wanted you guys to do it. You guys were awesome. I saw what Razorfish did. It was fine. It wasn't, as cool as I think what we would have done. But, cool is relative. The guy who made the final decision didn't want to get his ass fired. The VP
Totally.
or the head.
Why would I go with the little guy?
Why would I don't even know the group.
Right.
Like, why would I use them? Let me use Razorfish and be assured that I'm not going to get my ass fired and
Right.
report to Comcast, the corporate parent.
Right.
So keeping in mind that the proposal is never about anything but making the best decision as it relates to who the organization is. So the last few things here, key resources, bios, if we bring up again the screen. And then at the end, there's some stuff I'm going to delete, SEO. I don't want to talk about SEO on this. So kind of having bios for some of the key resources, and then moving on to related case studies. So we have these sometimes in the appendix because we don't want to necessarily have too many of them. And I'll share these. And this is what I was mentioning, where we want to probably in the future make these into like a single page or a few pages. But when you're presenting this in person, this is fine. So it has a summary of what it is. And you might leave it behind. It shows a little bit of the process, what we did for this next at the identity level. So in this case scenario, are these all the appropriate case studies for the This Week in Network? Probably not. We're probably going to have to switch these out a little bit. I think this next is somewhat appropriate, but maybe not. And also it's from 2006, so it's a little older. White Canvas is more appropriate because it's a little bit more relative in terms of the design. But you also want to know the design aesthetic that the client wants. We can show MySpace, City Search redesign, where we can show a bit of how this happens. Again, what you're showing the client here is a bit of the process. These are not the final screens. This is really looking at the identity development and explorations that were done for the site. And then here's, again, some more of the design. This is not live because City Search is taking a slightly different approach than what this redesign did. But hey, we're showing it to This Week in Network, and they're like, wow, you guys redesigned City Search, and it looks good, and you guys helped redesign MySpace, and all these different things. That's the validation level that you want. You've worked with people like us. You've worked with corporate executives. The client was on our show, JP Bedoya.
That's true.
Who's an amazing user experience guy, and he's extremely experienced and smart. And he was the one who. You know what is funny? Working for great clients produces better work. When the client is really awesome and experienced, and you want to measure that. You want to see how awesome the client is in terms of their own experience, and the more experienced a client is, the higher the likelihood of a successful project.
I have a question about something you said earlier. So you only show like projects that are more recent, a little bit more fresh?
You can show a variety of projects, but in our case, I personally, as a designer, I like to show the more recent stuff. But really, the reality is you want to show the most relevant.
Right.
We need to show more video sites, and this is what we don't have in this particular thing. So for next week's pitch, we're going to really make this heavy on video sites that we've done. Right. This is Ford Models, which is doing the strategy and the design for their iPhone. Actually, this is iPhone work, this next iPhone. And some of these things didn't get built, but we're showing the design specifically. To me, savings.com was one of the sites and one of the experiences that, and you art directed this, and this is your magical work. One of the things that I really appreciate from savings.com and from the team, from Lauren, from Pete, that we worked with, was that we spent a year with them, a year and a bit, and we iterated and we made changes and we improved on the site. And Lauren was a tough client. He was like demanding. He said, I want awesomeness, and
we came to you guys.
I like that, by the way. I like that.
Good. Well, it ups your game, right?
Well, I like it when the client challenges you directly, and knowing how to challenge you. It's like, look, I hired you because you guys do great work. Where the hell is it?
Right.
That's I love that. So Live Earth, we wouldn't necessarily put into this pitch. This is something that we would probably take out, because this is identity and development for a movement. Even though, I mean, the impact or the scale of it from the idea of it being a movement might be relative. I don't really know. I don't think it's appropriate for this particular project.
I mean, there are things you could take out of it, right? Like the way you branded the individual cities, like maybe that's a way to brand the individual shows within the network.
Okay, actually, that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should have, and I don't have a pen on me, but we should do maybe some. So Ecologue, this is video, so this is appropriate. This is something that should stay in there.
Right.
And has content. So if we bring that up, yeah, it has content. It has it's vertical content specifically. Opportunity Green, again, we wouldn't necessarily have, even though it shows a little bit of a broader kind of style. Costcast, this would be a show, definitely, because it has video and it's media related.
So in that first slide, you're basically stating the problem and how you solved it? The text that...
Yeah, the first slide is here's what the challenge was. So, okay, so immediately I'm going to delete the iPhone stuff. I'm going to leave. I had a comment from someone who was very interesting, who said that mobile is important. So I'm going to I'm going to leave this next because I like it. I'm going to leave City Search. I'm going to leave the iPhone stuff. I'm going to leave savings.com. I like your idea of only showing specific things. I'm going to take out Opportunity Green. Mm-hmm. And then I want to add like 2 or 3 more case studies that are related to this. So I want to show real quick your Flying VIPs version. You want to talk a little bit to that? Oh, one last thing. So a follow-up. So something that we sometimes are asked to do and we do frequently is that when we've already presented, maybe in the following week, or to remind the executive, or we do it often at the end when they're ready to make the decision, where the follow-up is, hey, here it's, what are the things that it's going to take to do this awesome. But one of the things that I really like doing is, the top 5 reasons why the group is the right partner. Mm-hmm. And this one particularly is similar to that. It just kind of states, playful exploration. And again, this is very visual. And really stating the skillful builders,
right.
You're reiterate an effective funnel. This is based very specifically on the particular client's needs. So it wasn't arbitrary. We were saying, look, here are the reasons why, and they're listed in this list. Or we sometimes do top 5. We do different ways of doing it, but that's something that we sometimes do for a follow-up. Nice. So all right, so going to the, here it is. Here's one. Here's a very similar document for another project. Top 5 reasons why the group is the right partner for a client. I do this often. This is how we close Live Earth. We said the top 7 reasons to work with the group. We're really excited about the client. You need to be excited about it.
Right.
It's freaking like, if they know that you're excited, they're going to say, hey, these guys are excited. We have world-class design, experienced social media and lifestyle brands. We've created, full brand ecosystems for highly visible partners, and we're fun. Also, the other thing is, you want to project this. You want to work with a fun team.
Right.
You want to have fun. You want the project to be interesting. So here, showing the different things now broken out. So world-class design for the world's top brands. So showing, look, we've worked with the world's top brands, experience in social media and lifestyle brands. For this particular pitch, or for this particular proposal, it was a lifestyle brand, and we really wanted to make that point or it was a social media pitch in a lifestyle category. So it was important to have that experience highlighted. So here, showing the people, showing Al Gore, a picture of me with Al Gore, showing. I'm not in the picture. I should have probably taken a picture of Thomas Keller, and then Lauren Bendel, at savings.com, and showing at the top slides of the ecosystems that we built for them. That we didn't just build one site, that we build like an entire system for their
Right,
businesses.
right.
People are not buying websites. So the final one is we're fun to collaborate with, and we're showing the conference room. We even have proposals where we have video of meetings or interviews with clients. You know, the more you can show the client, and always say thank you at the end. That's a really great thing, thank you. The more you can show the client about the client, hey, Daily 95, do you have a question? He's saying, hey, which is not a question, but hey. The more you can show, the better. So here's an example of you using the template.
Right,
for
right. That's funny. Yeah, that was a really small project. I basically took the template that you gave me. I really stripped it down. And
Can we bring that up real quick on the screen?
It's funny because the slide that shows the team with the silhouettes, there's just me standing in the middle, like the silhouette that's supposed to be representing
This is great. So you have the table of contents, introduction, resources, you know, costs, etc. You have the introduction,
right.
which has the fees already summarized, which is not a bad thing to do. It's actually a very good thing to have the fees summarized. And this slide is you should have put developer too.
That's true.
Designer and developer, because it looks so lonely.
I know. I am kind of alone there in the
go.
middle of all that white space. But yeah, I mean, and I mentioned this before, I mean, this particular client, regardless of the fact that it was a small project, they were very cost sensitive. So it was important to them to just, you know, kind of outline everything at the beginning, just be really clear about how much things were going to cost. And I believe the original version of this document, I had 2 approaches, right? So this is how much it's going to cost if you take approach 1 and approach 2, which I think was the one that he selected. Then I just kind of like removed all the slides that had to do with that alternate kind of approach, and then just focused on that one.
So this was a while ago. So this was a couple years ago, and it's about $2,500, $3,000 worth of work, which I think ended up being more long term in the relationship. But when the question that some people might ask is like, Jose, can we use this crazy template? And again, if you tweet me at Jose Caballero, I'll give you access to the documents. I'll email you access, so you can direct tweet me. Use Twitter, please. That's really the best way. Or ask on Facebook, or ask on Facebook or YouTube. Wherever you ask, we'll figure it out. The name of the app is Keynote. And again, I want to reiterate that Keynote is the bomb diggity bomb. I mean, I wish I could just do Keynote demos and talk about how awesome it is. And you can download these templates. We're going to provide them. We're going to give you access to our group school wiki if you request it. And again, just tweet me and I'll let you know more. But so how did this go? You got the project.
It went really well. Yeah, exactly. And I think it cleared up all the questions that he had at the beginning. And I think he's also a guy who comes from a little bit more of a traditional background. He's not super familiar with the web, so he wasn't super clear as to what was going to get done. So I think this was a really good way of showing him that.
So ultimately, he was making the transition as an executive into the startup world, and he was doing this new side. And this was his first stab at it.
Right.
And I remember that he had a developer who had given him some quotes via email, and didn't follow up, and it didn't work so well.
Right.
So was he responsive to you sending him this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, he loved it. I don't think he expected it. So I think when I sent it over to him, he was pleasantly surprised. We had I had 2 different approaches there, one that cost a little bit more than the other. We were able to discuss it really clearly because I had sent him this, because everything was broken down so simply, and just kind of showing him everything visually with the charts. And I like in that last slide how you have just the different deliverables, the size of each one, like the bigger bubbles mean like something might be a little bit more expensive than something else, how long it's going to take.
So the visual overview, so this slide. And I think this slide is where the people really, whoa, that is super cool.
Did you see
I love
that?
it, fancy.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm flying.
Cool. Yeah.
So this slide of showing,
exactly.
the price broken out in a visual way.
Right.
Interesting, yeah. No, people definitely do like this
slide.
They
respond well to that.
They respond well to this slide. All right, so ultimately, to recap the 3 things and to kind of go back to that and to wrap up our session today, the 3 keys to a successful proposal. 1 is to establish trust by sharing what you've done. So write a narrative of that in a brief paragraph. Look at what other people do to write that. Share how you do it, so your process. Again, look at how other people do it. Look at how we do it. We're going to share this document with you. If you tweet me at Jose Caballero, we'll share it with you on the group school wiki. What, who, and how much. So at the end, what, who, and how much. What are you going to do? What are the deliverables?
Right.
What are you going to give us? Who's going to do it? And what do they do, the description, and how much it's going to cost. And that's it. Those are the real three big things. And at the end, you can also show case studies, which is part of establishing trust. We also get requests. We get requests for referrals, people to have the contact information for 3 clients. We put quotes from clients, and sometimes we have video of clients on our site, or we send them links to where people can see it. So
I like the one that you did, the University of Santa Monica proposal, I think it was, where you had this whole futuristic case study and you did a video.
Yeah, we should share that.
That's a good one.
We did a video where we did the future scenario of somebody acting out what it was like to have used the products that we were creating for them in the future. And we've done that more frequently, not necessarily during the pitch process, but once we're in the engagement.
You said somebody cried during the...
Somebody did cry.
Got emotional.
Somebody got emotional during the pitch.
That's how much you connected
with them.
Yeah, that was really good.
So again, go to facebook.com/TWI Webdesign and like us and ask questions about today's episode. We're at the 55-minute mark, so this marks not only our 20th episode, but our longest episode.
Our 1 hour episode.
1 hour episode, and we're going to be doing this from now on, where we're going to have longer episodes and go over in more detail what we're doing. Next week, we're going to do the pitch, and you're going to watch us pitch to the This Week In team, to Ryan and to Mo, and from between now and then we're going to prepare what you saw today a bit further and customize it more for them, but we hope this was valuable and that you enjoyed it. We will see you next week.